시청자 여러분 안녕하세요. 대한민국 포커계를 이끌어가고 있는 홀덤 클럽의 스펑키입니다. 전에 말씀드렸던 것처럼 저희 개인 방송 횟수는 앞으로 조금씩 좀 줄어들 예정이지만 이런 유튜브 비디오들을 통해서 더욱 좋은 콘텐츠로 앞으로 여러분들을 계속 찾아뵐 예정이니 좀 좋게 봐주셨으면 좋겠고요. 많이 지켜봐 주셨으면 감사하겠습니다. 오늘은 제가 최근에 본 개인적으로도 보고 영감을 많이 받은 그런 영상을 이제 저희가 이제 보여드릴 예정인데요. 바로 최근에 있었던 더그 폴크와 필 헬물스의 인터뷰 내용 영상에 이제 저희가 자막을 입혀서 여러분들에게 이제 소개를 해드리게 되었어요. 근데 이제 인터뷰를 이제 바로 보여드릴 텐데 일단은 인터뷰에 앞서 제가 이제 간단하게 더그 폴크에게 좀 사과의 한마디를 하고 영상을 시작하도록 하겠습니다. 왜냐면 지금 현재 이 영상 같은 경우는 제가 이제 더그 폴크의 콘텐츠 때 제가 이제 무단으로 가져왔거든요. 그러니까 먼저 더그에게 한마디 올리도록 하겠습니다. Hey Doug, what's up? First of all, I would like to say, including me, all the Korean viewers are huge fans of yours. Your recent interview with Phil Hellmuth was just so amazing that I had to just share it with our Korean viewers. I hope you understand and I love you, bro. 자, 그럼 아래 구독 버튼과 좋아요 버튼 한 번씩 눌러주시고 인터뷰로 바로 넘어가도록 하겠습니다.
What's up, guys? Doug Polk here. And today we're joined for another podcast with a guest. I mean, if you don't know who this guy is, you must not have been in poker for the last, 20 or 30 years. One of the most famous and successful poker players in the entire world. I'm joined by Phil Hellmuth.
Yeah, and I mean your upswing did a nice little article. I like that. I didn't know that was you. You did a nice little article. How good is Phil Hellmuth? And so many people in their 20s just they haven't seen the numbers or the math. And you did a nice little article so I mean I have a pretty good ROI.
Yeah, it's actually funny you bring that up because I had it as a topic to talk about how insanely good you've done in the World Series. Because when we started upswing, like, all right, let's make some articles about some notable players. Let's see how good Phil Hellmuth is, and we actually went through and looked at every cash, ROI, amounts of buy-ins, and we were looking at it. We're like, this guy's actually just crushing these events. And I tweeted at you, or Upswing tweeted at you, and I remember your response vividly. You said, actually, you guys listed too many buy-ins. I had less buy-ins in these results.
It's true. I mean, you thought I was playing like 32 to 35. I was more playing like 28 events. So yeah, I mean, I don't know. Now I just started off bragging, but I guess people expect that. But yeah, I mean, I think I have the best ROI in history by far. I think that you look at the chart and I'm up here. USA Today did an article too. So I feel pretty good about my no limit hold'em. I don't get to play it enough at the series because there's so many other events, but hopefully I'll crush the Poker Masters. But I also think, Doug, and you may or may not agree with this, but for me personally, I feel like we're baseball players in a sense that we have this curve. And if you catch me at the top of the curve, I just crush. Jason Mercier was at the top of the curve last year, and then we have other great players who are more at the top of the curve this year. Two guys won 2 bracelets, right? But then if you catch me down here, I'm not quite as strong. And I can't exactly tell you why, except to say, if you look at a great baseball player, for some reason, they're crushing the ball for a month and a half and then they're in a slump. So I really think that there's some random timing involved in some of this stuff. So I think that's a factor for us.
Yeah, I mean, you definitely have, heaters and cold stretches. I mean, that's part of being a poker player. I think anyone that's not gone through that, I mean, at some point, reality is going to set in, right? And there's going to be, even if you're a great player, you're going to have good times, you're going to have bad times. I've always been a little bit more aggressive with my bankroll, so I definitely went through some times where I lost a lot of money that I probably should not have lost. But actually, you know what? So while we're talking about the World Series, let's jump right into some of the stuff about that. And my first question for you here is, why do you think that you managed to do so well in these World Series events? Because your results are awesome. You constantly go deep, and it's hard to get a big sample size, right? But you've been playing these for I mean, at least a couple of decades, like three decades of playing these tournaments. So, when I look at that sample, I feel like you've done really well. And then sometimes I see hands where from like, I'm more of a technical side player, I would say. I see a hand and I'm like, I would never do that. I would never do that. Why do you think you've managed to do so well despite playing, a very different style than we see from a lot of the young players today?
Well, I think that's interesting. I think if I were in the shoes of the young great players today, I would try to learn from me. I would pay attention. I'd be like, well, what is he doing that I don't understand? What is he doing that I think is bad? I would try to learn. I always looked at the great players when I was young and tried to learn, what are they doing? What are they reasoning? Because why wouldn't you learn and get better? And I think too many people are just like, oh, I saw him misplay one hand on high stakes. We were filming 100 days a year. Of course, I look horrible on a bunch of those hands. Of course, that's just natural and normal. Just like if every one of you guys were being filmed, we would catch you having bad days and bad hands. Those hands got played. And so, so I think that there's just kind of a, by the way, I have to segue to something here, Doug.
Okay, we're already segueing.
You and I are going to have way too many segues, but 10-handed at the one drop. And if I can last one more spot, I'm going to be the first guy to make 3 tables in the one drop. I've only played 4 of them. So it'd have been pretty cool to make 3 out of 4. But you were there, 10-handed, and you were rolling with queens. And if you go broke, I make that final table, by the way. And
I'm sorry, man. I feel terrible about it. No, I don't.
What did your opponent have? Ace-9 or something?
Oh man, I can't even remember. Dude.
Still, if you lose that pot, I'm at that final table.
I know. I'm lucky.
No, you played great. You deserved it. Nice job.
I appreciate that, Phil. I really do, man. So do you think that there's like a side of poker that is kind of getting lost on a lot of the younger generation? The white magic, if you will, is not something that the younger players are using. And do you feel like that's something that they should use more?
There are some great young players that have really good white magic. All right. And I wonder sometimes if you have it and don't even know it, because I think that it's really funny. I don't think you could have done what you've done so far without having some reads. So the funny thing is, I look at you and you might think this is funny. And I'm like, he actually has pretty good reads. Why is he going so far the other direction, saying he doesn't have reads and saying it's all math? Because I just don't think you're going to see the math guys. No math guy's going to win 10 bracelets. And so I just don't think that'll ever happen. You look at the guys that are down there consistently over the years, and they have some great reading abilities. And your generation, there are some guys. I mean, I think of Byron Caverman is having really good reads. There's 3 or 4 other guys that I should name off the top of my head. Mercier can have some good reads sometimes. There's a bunch of guys.
We love Mercier here in the channel.
I know. And by the way, I might ask you a hard question at some point too.
Oh, you can anything. You can ask me whatever, man.
All right, what's the deal with you and Negreanu? Because I love both of you guys. What's up?
Okay. All right. So here's the thing about Negreanu. When I first got into poker and I was coming up in the game, not even before that, right? When I first found out about poker and I watched poker, I really loved Daniel Negreanu. We're talking like 10-ish years ago or so, right? I watched all the high stakes poker stuff. I saw him constantly. I thought he had all the reads. You know how he'd be like, "You have quads, call." I mean, but he was always right. Like he knew all the hands and stuff.
I always tease him about that's my number one tease. Is Daniel, you're great at reading people. Why do you keep calling?
So anyway, I've always like from the get-go when I got into poker, I really liked Negreanu. I thought he was like a fun guy. I thought he was a good poker player and could read people. And I guess part of the problem has been through like my development as a player, I feel like we've always kind of had situations where we're on opposite sides of the fence. And the first example of that is, and I think it was 2013 or something like that. He tweeted out that he could beat 2550 in like 2 weeks of study or something. And the thing is, like, as someone that has come from like an online background, I felt like it was kind of insulting to the online community. Like, those games are extremely hard. Like, I don't think I could beat 2556 max. Certainly not right now. I would need to study and get better and whatever. So like I felt like I wanted to stand up for the community and say, like, look, man, like,
well, wait. Also, it's partly your own ego. You have to admit that, right? You're young. It's hard to admit at a young age. If I asked you this question in 10 years, you'd say, yes, this is partly my ego. Can you answer that now and say that?
Well, I would say it's partly ego. Obviously, I want online poker to be respected, but also keep in mind, Phil, like the game type he was talking about, I didn't really play that much. Like, it wasn't like he was like, I would crush Doug heads up. Then, oh yeah, there would be some ego.
Okay, that's a good counterpoint.
But still, yeah, I wanted to make sure that like, I guess I felt that when you slight online players for like not being as good as they are, when it's so tough to come up in that world, yeah, I don't know, it didn't feel, and then he didn't do it, right? He just said it and then he didn't really do it. So that was kind of our first like scuffle. And then the rake thing, and I'm trying to kind of move away from the rake thing a little bit just because I feel like it's just gotten beaten to death and like all of the good jokes have been done and I'm ready to kind of move on as well. But I did feel that when he said some of the things he said, that it wasn't cool and it just wasn't true. You know, it's not good for poker players if the rake goes up. You know, maybe it's good for
I
one.
agree.
Yeah,
I agree
I think it's a fair point.
I thought, I thought like Daniel and I get along great. If you look back, I've never attacked him ever in a public forum. But I'm willing to discuss. And I do think that if he wasn't, I do think that he probably shouldn't have gone and said that, hinted that rake is better. Rake is better. Yeah. If you work for Poker Stars, you know what I mean? But I find Daniel to be very authentic and honest. And occasionally, I think maybe he was just a little bit off key with this one.
Yeah, for sure. No, like I'm not saying, I mean, look, no one's perfect. You know, I've said things I'm wrong about, but I guess like the biggest problem was, he would just always double down. Like, no, I never said that, but here's why it's true, kind of with like that article that he wrote. Um, and when someone's, says something and then says they didn't say it, but like kind of did, I just really hammered it because again, like I wanted to kind of stand up for the community of people where, this rake increase is going to hurt them, So as far as like Negreanu personally, I'm not like vegan and all that stuff. And I feel like he can be a bit preachy about that. But, I do have a lot of respect for the work that he continues to put in. I mean, look, like there are the biggest names in poker, right? And like of the 3 or 4, you're both on the list. So like of the biggest names in poker, the 2 people that are still really out there promoting the game and working and building and bringing people in are you and Negreanu, and I have a lot of respect for that. The fact that you can go that many years, still love the game and still be a part of it. But I also just sometimes want to make sure that if something funny happens or I need to say something to stand up for people, that I'm also going to take that approach.
All right, that seems reasonable. That's a good answer. I also feel like I heard you say that you respected Daniel, and I think he respects your game as well. We talked about you once or twice, and
to be a fly on the wall.
for me, it's kind of good. For me, I like it when the great players get along. I told the guys I tried to pull players back together in 05, 06, 07, 08 when we were really starting to take off, and I'm like, listen, if Nike comes to me and gives me a shoe, don't be jealous because Reebok's coming to you. Support that, praise that, feel good about that. We need corporate money in poker. And so, I think that I've always strived to get along with Doyle Brunson and Johnny Chan and the whole community. And I think I've done a great job. I feel like I have 0 enemies. There might be a couple guys that don't like me, but 0 enemies is what it feels like. You probably can think of somebody that attacks me somewhere, but whatever. I feel like in the poker community, I play every day with all these 10K players. They put up with me. They're tolerant of me and my antics.
Yeah, no, I do think that you have this persona going, this whole being the greatest, which is your Instagram screen name, and I find that hilarious. Just your screen name. Why did you make that your name? Why do you like promote that, hashtag PH nice life like type of living?
I feel that's aspirational. I feel like people should want to. I feel like if you're a poker player, having 14 bracelets is aspirational. Hanging out with, I just tweeted out that I signed books for President Clinton, Elon Musk, Jim Harbaugh, Sheryl Sandberg just this week. Draymond Green. And so it's kind of an aspirational life that I lead. I'm hanging out with some of the coolest people on the planet. And I know it, and I'm at some of the coolest places, some of the coolest hotels. And so I understand that I have a very cool life. I'm thankful. I'm really thankful for that. And so, I think it's a bit aspirational. The PH Nice Life is an aspirational hashtag. I try to use it at the coolest moments. The positivity is very important to me, thinking positive. You know me. We did a really fun video, you and I. We did a really fun kind of, I guess I just call it a video. Where were we, in Philly?
Oh yeah, we were at the Sugar House, and give me 1 second here, Phil. I think we might have some technical problems. We're seeing some complaints in the chat. Are we back? Okay, we're back. I don't know what happened. Apparently there was some lag or whatever. But yeah, we did. We got to sit down. That was really cool, by the way. Thank you for doing that. Just like sit down. We had dinner, had a couple drinks, hanging out, and I was all right. Let's just stream it. Let's just like say what's up and like I'm awkwardly like turning my neck to get into the camera, and the quality was so bad because the Wi-Fi was bad. But that was honestly a really good, authentic. That was a really authentic experience. And I think a lot of people really enjoyed that I don't know, stream kind of podcast, whatever you want to call it.
Well, I'm misunderstood. I'm misunderstood generally by the public, right? I mean, if you look within the poker world, you're in the poker world. And people in general tell you, you're going to hear it from 99% of the people that they like me, as a person, that I'm out there having fun. I'm hanging out with people, doing dinners, and I think I'm pretty accessible. And, that's what you hear. But then the public's like, oh, this guy's an ass. He's all he does. They just show the 1%, the 1/10 of 1% of my life where I'm going and losing.
Phil, you got to admit, there have been at least a few moments where you were an asshole.
Of course. No, of course. No, at the table. That's what I'm saying. At the table, sometimes I lose it for sure. What people don't see is I always apologize to my opponents. And the other thing is, almost everybody I play in the 10Ks with every day, they just laugh at me when I go off. They're all going, so the world, it's just Phil losing it. It's like John McEnroe when he's screaming and yelling because the ref screwed up a call, I'm like, I can't believe I got this unlucky. But people enjoy the show now. There's been a corner that was turned like maybe 3 years ago. So I feel like it's rarely, sometimes I get really kind of upset at an amateur, and then occasionally they're upset, then I feel bad. But most pros just laugh it off.
Yeah, I mean, frankly, I think in general, if you're going to be a professional poker player and you're going to let like a few words get to you, like you're gambling for thousands and thousands of dollars. If someone's saying something mean because they just got stacked when you sucked out or something is going to offend you, you're in the wrong business.
Yeah, I mean, I think, I'm a great winner. A great winner. You never hear me say a word.
I'm going to quote you on that.
A great winner. When somebody puts all their money in with 10-4 offsuit and I win, I never say a word. When they beat me and I have like aces or ace king, now it's a little different. Unfortunately, I'm a very poor loser.
Yeah. Do you? Okay, so that's actually a good topic to talk about. Do you feel like when you're losing?
By the way, let's get,
Let's do it. Let's do it.
I do have to say I'm super excited about Poker Brat. It seems like it's going global. I needed to hit the New York Times bestseller list, of course. I have on the back, Negreanu gave me a quote, Sheryl Sandberg gave me a quote, Tony Robbins, Jim Harbaugh, Draymond Green had one ready for me. And so it's
couldn't even make the list.
It's really fun. I'm really excited about the book. I just spent 5 days in the studio doing the audio version. And I think for me, the most exciting thing when I talk about this book, and I'm going on Squawk Box this week, and I'm going on Power Lunch on CNBC. And there's a big article on the Wall Street Journal coming out on me on Saturday, and the New York Post. I'm getting some major media. There's a bunch of big stuff coming in London as well. So I'm getting this global attention for the book, which is great. But for me, I talk about, and I think the pro poker players watching this can all get something out of it. I talk about how I struggled in high school, like most of us did, and was able to make something of myself. I talk about what it's like to hold together a marriage for 27, 28 years now. And there's a chapter about how I almost left my wife in 2015. She didn't like that. There's a chapter on how she almost left.
How is she going to like that?
because I talk about issues. There's a chapter on how she almost left me in 01, 02. And I talk about issues and how we fought through them. And everyone's going to be able to relate to those issues. So I think it's really readable and I think it's inspirational. So anyway, I'm really proud of this book. It's been getting rave reviews, which is wonderful. So
Awesome. Yeah, I'm definitely going to have to check it out. And what's one thing about the book that if someone reads it, what do you think is one thing they're going to take away from the book about you that they wouldn't have known otherwise?
well, I think there's a new respect, right? There's the one thing of people seeing me on air, occasionally losing it, or actually, Doug, I mean, you know this. I mean, you're around the cameras, and they will, if I ever lose it, I might just play for 3 days without losing it. I lose it for 1 minute. That's what's played on ESPN, by the way. So I
Oh,
mean,
I know.
Poker Brett's a good title, but I think people would say, wow, Phil's solid. I mean, here's a guy that's never cheated on his wife. Here's a guy that keeps trying hard. He wants to inspire the world. Here's a guy that my next book's called Positivity, How to Achieve Great Things in Life book. And I think millions of people are going to read it. I can help out the world a lot. And I think that that's a pretty cool thing. I mean, I think I raised $46 million for charity events I've emceed. People are going to see that, and there's a list of all the events I've done. And, I do one for Tiger Woods. I have one coming up in New York for Children's Hospital of Philadelphia. You should come
Nice.
to. I have another one coming up in Chicago. That's a crazy one. We raised about 1.7 million in one night for Teaching Tolerance charity.
Yeah, you know what? I feel like that's maybe something that is getting kind of lost on my generation of players. I think that you've definitely taken that role of being an ambassador for the game, trying to use it to promote good causes, and being really active on that front just in general. I don't really see that. When you talk about being on the cameras and everything and how they always find that one moment, I feel like the new generation of players, they don't really even care about the cameras or the promotion or like what good it's doing, or they're just there for the ranges and the check raise strategies and whatnot. And like, do you feel like maybe that there's something kind of being lost on that younger generation?
Yeah, I mean, two things. One, you talk about kind of the concept, you're hinting around a little bit of balance. Balance is important in life. And that's what I've strived to achieve. I have, 2 grown children now. But then to segue back to what you're really talking about here, and that's like what's happening with the younger generation. And I just wish that, I mean, a lot of people came right from their internet right to this world. And so they could spend time in their basement. There's a ton of super cool people in your generation that I love, but there's also a bunch that are a little bit more socially awkward. They came from playing online and they come in and they stare down. So now we're playing with rich amateurs that want to play poker with us, that are there for the thrill and the joy. And some of these guys are long-term winners and some aren't, but they don't want someone staring them down for 30 seconds every single time they make a decision. It's bad for poker. You're driving out. I will tell you for a fact, we lost a bunch of people in the 111K and the $1 million buy-in tournaments because they said, I don't want to deal with this anymore. I don't want some random kid staring me down for 30 seconds every time I make a decision. Poker should be fun. And so I think that that's been bad for the game, is this, again, staring people down, taking forever to act on your hand. And it's just like, you should be social, having fun. And we understood that coming up. That's why there's a lot of characters, right? Because we're also entertainers, right? I mean, people want to play high stakes poker with us. Now, I just can't help myself. That's just me. But some guys are just like, I mean, and a lot of guys came up with lower self-esteems, and found poker and trying to balance it. So someone like Mattisau can get a little bit weird. I love Mike. He's a good friend of mine. Someone like me can get a little bit, you did that to me. I can't believe this is happening. But it's entertaining, and I think that it actually drives people in to the television to watch and into the game. John Hesp was good for all of us. This was our best final table we've had in years because people were talking more. They were having fun. You didn't see some of the stuff. So if I'm a young professional poker player, I look at my responsibility for maybe not growing the game, but for at least not stopping the game in its tracks.
I think that that's completely true. And I have personally in these high rollers, I remember in the one drop a couple of years ago in the 100K one where, you know, someone well known for tanking, and I don't want to just like attack the few people that we all kind of know who they are, but someone well known for tanking was just tanking ridiculously on level 2. And there was a business guy at the table, and he just looked at the guy and he's like, you know, this is making me not even want to be here. And can you blame them? They're there to play for fun and hang out and whatever. And you know what the difference is that though too, Phil, like sometimes you do have to take your time, you know, and so I understand you're playing for a lot of money, trying to use your edge to a point, but then you also have to realize that particularly in these softer fields with a lot of business guys, you're not thinking about, yeah, okay, you might be making another dollar or two right now, right, by what you're doing, but you might be costing yourself a lot more than that in the long run by these people not continuing to play.
What's going to happen is this, you know, there's already been some discussion about, and believe it or not, there's been some discussion about this, about having invitational only tournaments and just shutting out all these guys that just tank and stare you down and just aren't fun to be with. And, you know, and they brought it on themselves. And this is really going to chaff them. I mean, you know, here's these guys have been successful, but nobody wants to play with them, not because they're great players, but because they're just a bit boorish and not fun. And like, you know, and this is going to really shake things up because I think this is going to happen. And then and then the boring players that aren't invited, all the ones that we shut out, that are going to get shut out, you know, all of a sudden they're going to be like, what the hell? We're going to sue them because they can't shut us out. And then what? We have like lawsuits because people are boring. I mean, this is a real thing, Doug.
Phil, you think I don't know about getting shut out of games?
Oh, no, well, listen, you'll never get. You see, you're a big personality. You're very good for the game, and you're very good for the game. And I'm not just saying that. I don't just say shit. It's just not my style. I'm straight up. But you've been great for the game. You're doing upswing poker, and you're making a lot of money. But everybody's happy because you're bringing in all these new players. These guys that are doing kind of the YouTube, what would you call them, blogs or
Vlogs,
YouTube
yeah,
videos,
vlogs.
yeah, vlogs, right? They're doing it for the small stake stuff like $1 and $2 blind, no limit hold'em. These guys are great for the game. People are watching them and they're saying, this is the game I play in. This is how I want to learn. So yeah, you're good for the game and you're always smiling and having fun too. I don't see you staring people down for 30 seconds. And when you did stare someone down on ESPN the other day, at least you kept it entertaining. You're like, I should go with my read. No, I'm going to go with the math. No, I'm going to go with my read. That's entertaining. So, I mean, you know, we need more of that.
I really appreciate that, Phil. That means a lot to me, you know, especially as one of the newer players, and having grown up watching players like you on TV and the personalities and everything, you know, it means a lot to me when you say that. And I always tell myself when I'm playing poker, because obviously it's fun to win. It's easy to be happy and riding high when you're winning, right? But I always just try and tell myself that I'm very fortunate to be here. I'm very thankful to be here. And, you know, win or lose at the end of the day, I'm happy for the life poker has given me, because without poker, you know, and this is true for you as well, without poker, you know, who would we be? We would be nobody, right? We're lucky that we found that game to begin with.
Yeah, I mean, poker's done so much for me. I mean, I always say poker's my life, and it is my life. And, you know, and yeah, sure, now I have great balance in my life. All these events I do, all this money I raised for charity. And you know, I mean, I charge $25,000 for charity events, but I feel great about that because my average charity event raises $1 million. I'm charging 2.5%. And I've watched charity models for 30 years where, you know what, they keep 95%, they throw the charity 5%. I have that flipped on its head. And so it makes me feel good. I mean, I did an event for Michael Finley down in Dallas, you know, and I mean, I've never seen so many celebrities. I mean, just go back and look at the social media from that event. They only raised like 150,000. I gave back a bunch of the money because I can't, you know, and I said, listen, I don't want to do a charity unless it raises $1 million, because I want to get to $100 million in money raised for charity. It's an active goal of mine right now. And I'm on my way.
I mean, you're going to get there, really. Actually, so let's talk about this for a moment. What So one thing I really respect in really anyone is drive. You know, waking up every day, the grind, getting stuff done, and then kind of in the field that we're in, it's a mixed bag of playing, and then also the social media side, the video side, the streams, the ESPN. You know, you know the life. You know the whole thing. So what, after so many years of doing the same thing, of being in this game, what makes you still hungry to get out there and accomplish more? Because, you know, in the world of poker, there's really only so much more that someone like you can do. What keeps you hungry?
Man, I hear that question. I think a weird thing is I don't even understand it half the time, because I care so much about it's like a lifetime goal in 1993, be the greatest poker player of all time. Well, I can't get there on the cash games. Nobody knows. And I've thrown this out there 100 times. If you're a cash game player, we know who the greatest maybe 5 cash game players are. Some of those guys are also good at being invited to the right games. Some of those guys are good at borrowing money when they really need it. Some of those guys are really good at having other outside sources of income. So we can't really tell, we can still tell you who 4 or 5 of the greatest are, but would they, if they didn't have those other skills, which aren't really a part of poker playing, would they, without those other skills, still be where they are? Or would they have had a $2 million downswing and just never been heard from again? In poker tournaments, we start fresh every single day. Every single tournament, you can prove something there and then. So in 93, I decided to go after the World Series of Poker. So to me, that's just a no-brainer. That's part of my DNA now, is that I have to go there and try my hardest. And I got to tell you, I heard all these years people whining and complaining, 2006, 2007, all the great players coming in, you know what I mean, all looking forward to the tournaments. 5 days in, they're like, screw this, they've had no cashes, and they're like, screw it, the cash games are much better. And they just one by one drop out and disappear. I don't. I just keep firing and firing and firing and firing. And it takes some discipline to do that. Now, I had a blast this year. I mean, it was great for me. 2017, I had so much fun competing. And that's a blessing, because it's not like that every year. But yeah, so, and I didn't have, unfortunately, my best year. I started to get hot right at the end. You talk about this curve. I made a final table on Saturday. Well, the main event started on Saturday. So I ran out of tournaments when I really started to kind of heat up,
Oh man, what are you gonna do? But so let's talk about playing these smaller stakes events, because one thing that it seems that you do a lot of are playing those smaller buy-in tournaments, the larger fields, particularly in a lot of the mixed games. What's the experience like playing those compared to playing the one drop? And do you enjoy playing in those types of events?
I love it. I love playing in these mixed games, $1,500 buy-in, 500 or 1,000 people. It's great. How many people were in the Raz tournament? It was a $1,500 buy-in. Was it 500 or 600 or something? And I final tabled that. I was all in one time or something. I mean, it's just great, because you actually get to play against, and it's interesting to see in these 1,500 mixed games, you didn't have a lot of great players winning bracelets. Some of these guys are like, well, I'm going to focus on the 10Ks and that's all I care about, And then they finally all got smart. And now you see a lot of great players. Every $1,500 event, when you look at the final 16 players, you're going to see like 7 top players. It's crazy. And so, it's fun. It's fun to be able to smash a field that big. It's very rewarding. I've won bracelets in field sizes of 3,500. I was just reading my autobiography. I was finishing it up on Sunday, doing the audio version. And I was starting to read, the field sizes that I was crushing this last decade. And I'm just like, man, that's kind of cool. 1,600 players and I final tabled, and 3,500 players and I won it. The 1,600 players I finished second, had a massive chip lead. And I'm just looking at these numbers and going, this is cool. And it's rewarding to be able to do that. And you know what? It takes all your skills, because you have to play against bad players and good players and adjust to the blinds and what everybody else is doing, for 3 kind of intense days.
You also do, not to take away from winning bracelets, Lord knows I've won more than my share for the amount of events I've played. but you also have to get really lucky to take down fields that big.
Yes and no. I think people overestimate, because listen, you play a very mathematical strategy, which dictates sometimes that you feel it's correct. And I'm not saying your math's not correct, but I look at it differently. So you're going to play a lot more all-in pots. There's just times where you just have to go with ace queen, where you have to go with eights or nines. I'm never putting my chips in with ace queen or eights or nines. So I'm just playing small pots, waiting for better spots, waiting for times where I can just pick up chips by knowing my opponent has nothing. I mean, I watched Devilfish do this. I mean, he went into the Hall of Fame. He'd triple up his stack every tournament without hands. And he'd come to me and whine, oh, I finally picked up kings. And of course, the amateur or the top pro put it in with ace jack for some reason. And now I'm back down to a stack, and he'd steal it all the way up. So, I mean, there's been a lot of opportunity for a lot of years, even in modern poker. If you read people well, it's really a boon, because you're going to be able to do things to them. Especially your generation was locked into this theory, that they had to open for 2x, and then someone else had to raise it to 4x, and then you're like, and I just come in and be like, all right, that's what they're doing. Well, let me just call 2x and raise 7x, because I know they're weak and I know they can't even call, and so now I think maybe they have a pair of fives. They can't call 7x raise with fives. You might eventually adjust and start moving in with fives. That's dangerous too, though. And you probably wouldn't think that's mathematically correct to stick in 80 big blinds with five, even you with five burgers. So
I not my style of play.
So, I mean, so there's opportunities. So I find sometimes when I'm really on, I'm going really deep and I'm just trying to avoid one unlucky hand. And, at my best, the 2012 WSOPE main event, I was all in one time. 2 hours in, it had come like king 8-7. I had a set of eights. I checked to let the guy hit a set of threes. I was all in and he had one out. And then I won that tournament. But that was my best read fest of my life. I mean, like, I was just like, they'd 2x it, I'd 7, 8x it, 2x, 7, 8. I just kept winning pots uncontested. I mean, it was great. So I do think that there are other ways to think about it. But yeah, I mean, if my reads aren't on, then I feel like I have to get lucky to make it deep. But if my reads are on, I feel that there's less luck. That's all.
Well, yeah, if you can make good reads, then for sure go with it. But the problem is that how confident you are in those reads should, affects what you do. And you definitely, you understand that the reason that these younger guys are doing these strategies, they're not doing them just because. They're doing them because there's a lot of analysis put into what is the best strategy. And they're trying to play as close to perfect poker as they really can. Now, that might not capitalize on some of the recreational people, but that certainly means something. Some of the sizes they use and strategies they use, they have merit, no?
I think I sounded, if you rewind this a minute or two, I sounded too cocky, like I didn't respect the younger generation. That's completely the opposite of the case. I think that the theories you guys have developed are super elegant and super fun and make a lot of sense. Now, that's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying that, I think that the white magic element can really add a lot to that.
Okay, yeah, that seems totally fair. All right, so let's talk about this. How important in a poker player's career do you feel winning bracelets are? Now, obviously, you're going to be pretty pro bracelets here, given your history. But do you think that they really are a measurement of success? There is a lot of luck when it comes to bracelets. You have to win a lot of all-ins. I know that you pride yourself on not having those situations happen, but they're going to happen a lot. I'm sure that on average, if you look at bracelets that you've won, there were some points in the tournament where a couple of cards needed to come out. This is just the way tournaments are. So how important do you feel that bracelets are for poker players in general?
Yeah, I mean, sometimes I have 9-10 suited and I'm all in, and the other guy has ace queen, and yeah, I need that, of course. Yeah. I think bracelets, but I decided in 1993 that if I wanted to be the greatest poker player of all time, so I had this goal, this vision. You can become the greatest poker player of all time. It started in 93. I talk about it in my book. How can you get there? Only by winning bracelets and Hall of Fame championships. My book talks about all the tournaments that we used to play. I mean, I won 3 or 4 Hall of Fame watches, including the main event. That was a huge tournament to us. I won the bicycle club main event. Oh my God, was that in 1988? You know, I mean, all these major
Did you say 88?
I said 88.
That's the year I was born. I was in LA. I was in LA for that.
That's right. Well, that's the one I won in LA. That was a beautiful one. That was kind of my first major hello world moment, you know.
Actually, let's talk about that. So can you talk a bit about getting into poker and what your turning point was where you realized that you could be one of the greatest or the greatest at this?
Well, you know, it's interesting. Since we're talking about 1988, I was having trouble managing my money. Everybody in their 20s has trouble with managing their money, especially their lower 20s. It's just a normal, natural thing, right? And so I was having trouble, but I'd written, you know, a whole code. I'd written a pyramid and made, you know, a pyramid of success. I talk about it in my book, you know, about the things you have to master. At the top of the pyramid is money management. And you and I both know this. You can have talent up here and money management down here, and you live a miserable life. You can have talent right here and money manage. If your talent's here and your money management is here, you might live a very smooth life. You're going to pay all your bills. Money management.
You mean the other way? Money management's up here?
Yes.
Okay.
And I said that, money management. I think I did it right.
Okay.
But yeah, when your money management is great and your talent is down here, you can live a smooth life. If it's the other way around, you know, I mean, and you have a wife and kids, man, and you're wondering where the money from the bills is at, that's brutal.
That's scary. That honestly seems scary. It seems scary to think about for what a lot of the poker players that are kind of on the brink and have a family. How do they live like that?
It's tough. And so eventually it gets beaten into you that it's all about money management. So for me in 1988, I had decided my money management was really strong at the bike. I went out there. Well, I shouldn't say that. I brought $12,000, enough to play the 5K and the 1K with rebuys and use about 3K for cash games. First night I lost probably 8 or 9,000, unfortunately. But I was determined to stick to my plan. I had $2,700 left heading into the 1K with rebuys. I flew out there for 2 tournaments, 2 two-day tournaments. I played in it, I rebought, and then I bet a $400 last longer bet with somebody across the table thinking I'm going all in for my bankroll on this trip, right? I knew I could get a flight home. Back then you get a flight home for $180. So I wasn't worried. I could get a taxi to the airport. So I'm all in with deuces. And the other guy is ace jack. And the guy I had the side bet with. And it comes all blanks. I win this pot. Now you fast forward to the next day, and Eric Seidel and I are playing heads up for the tournament. And so instead of, and we made a deal, and so I walked away with like $62,000. So now, but you're talking 3 in the morning now on day 2, we're exhausted. So Eric beat me. I had him all in 7 or 8 times. I talk about this in the book. It's kind of a fun. So then what do? I go for a run through frickin' the most dangerous neighborhoods in LA at 3 in the morning because it's the only way I can recover from winning all this money from nothing. I enter the 5K. Eric Seidel's the first person out. And I'm like, well, maybe it was good I didn't win that tournament. I was looking for some positivity. And I devised this whole system for how to play heads up, running in my mind on my run and how I'd blown it against Eric. And I'm thinking, I'm going to have to wait like months to use this in a tournament. Not. Day 1, get through day 2, I'm at the final table. It's Johnny Chan, it's TJ Clutie, it's Jack Keller, the 3 best players in the world and me. And, you know, and we're playing for $145,000. We get down to like 4-handed, and Jack Keller, we're talking about a deal, and he asked for way too much money. He's like, yeah, I can flip you at a massive chip lead. I'm like, all right, let's play for a while. But I'm super cautious and conservative. I'm like, shit. Because in those days, 40%, 20%, 10%, that's the way every prize pool was. And so fortunately, I busted Jack with like, you know, ace Jack high or something crazy. Oh my God, I'm going to have to go get I'm on 10% battery. That's bad. I'm going to have to go solve that in a sec.
10% battery on the laptop?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, we're probably going to have to solve that.
I'm gonna go get that in 1 second here. And so then I'm just gonna finish the story, run in there, and get my plug in. But anyway, so now it's so now I bust Jack Keller with ace jack. I bust somebody else with ace king high, and now I'm heads up, and I win it. No deal. I won the last 3 pots with ace high, which I thought was unusual. And now I'm holding a major trophy. There were like 4 majors per year. You wanted the World Series of Poker, but you wanted the big events at the Bike, Amarillo Slims tournament, and the US. There's about 4 a year you really wanted to win. So now I'm holding this trophy. I was deuces, man. I was this far away from leaving town with like $200, you know? And now I have $220,000, the major trophy. And I'm like, where's the best place in LA? They're like Spagos Restaurant, Wolfgang Puck's place. I go up there, I walk in, Ed McMahon slams a martini, you know, and I'm like, oh, I guess he really does like to drink, you know? And all of a sudden, I mean, it's just such a life changer. The Bicycle Club limo up to the best restaurant in town, and you know, and these things. I mean, there's a lot of close calls. To your point.
Awesome. Is that in your book?
Yeah, that whole sequence is in my book in a little bit better detail, actually. Hey, I might as well try to promote Chemo. Well, I run and get the. Damn it! All right, I'll be right back, Doug. Less than a minute.
All right. Well, we're gonna keep it on me while Phil goes and grabs his quick power cord. I want to give a couple of shouts in the chat here to you, the good people of YouTube. Thank you for tuning in today. We got a lot more. We got several more topics that we're going to be talking about here, including I want to talk a little bit about Ultimate Bet. I know a lot of you guys asked about that, and a few non-poker related questions too. So still a lot of great stuff coming up here on the podcast, brought to you by apparently what appears to be Kemosabe Mezcal, trusted friend. Anyway, guys. How are you doing, Jacoby 137? Good, glad to see you stop on by. We had a Kemosabe module. Don't know about that one. Don't know about that. Mezcal is great though. Honestly, I do enjoy Mezcal. Kemosabe is good stuff. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about some of the things that we talked about so far. You know, I think it's really interesting when we look at Phil Hellmuth's perspective as someone that kind of came up. Like, guys, like I was born in '88. His story of his turning point was the year I was born. So definitely a different, unique perspective. And I do think that there's a skill set when it comes to reading people and knowing what they are up to, what they're doing, what they have, that has value. And I'm not saying that I never use those things, but I only do it if it's close. So it's a different approach to poker, but definitely can have a lot of merit as well. If you're good at it. And I believe Phil's back.
I am back. Let me just plug this thing in. 7%.
All right, good. I'm glad you noticed that. It would have been an interesting moment as to what I was going to do while you were offline.
Okay, let me.
All right. So let me see. Is this good to go? All right, we're good to go. Okay, so let's do another couple of questions here from a little bit more back in the day. It is not help. All right, Chad, how's it going? I think Phil's still getting set up. I think there's maybe some chance that the computer died, perhaps. I'm going to be okay. Let's talk to the chat a little bit. Do you guys have any comments or questions you want to talk about here while we wait for Phil to get the computer going? Shout out to Eric Bauska, subscriber here on the channel. What's up, man? Glad to have you here. Patrick Harper, how's it going? Yeah, we were going to talk about Ultimate Bet. We're going to talk about who we think the top no-limit hold'em players are under 40. We're going to talk about we've been through that. We're going to talk about this is a good one. I think this is a great question. I forgot exactly who tweeted it, but I'm going to ask Phil for what his number one favorite moment is, his favorite TV moment. He's had so many. I want to ask him what his favorite one is. And then I want to ask him some questions about outside of poker. What would he have done if he didn't find poker? All that kind of stuff is still on the docket here, assuming that he comes back. So let's just take a few comments here from the chat. Talk about your heads up match. All right, so if you guys have not heard about this, I am going to be playing Phil Hellmuth. We haven't even talked about that yet either. I'm going to be playing Phil Hellmuth heads up for $50,000 on August 22nd on Poker Night in America. It is a 4-person winner-take-all tournament. I'm excited to play. Love heads up. You guys know me. So extremely excited to to be part of that. The matches are going to be me and Phil Hellmuth. On the other side of the bracket is Phil, you're back. Nice.
I mean, does your computer just cut off at 7%?
I don't know, man.
Seems a little early. All right. Anyway, sorry about that.
No worries.
All right. So yeah, I told you that long-winded story, but actually, I want to show you one more thing, Doug. This is pretty cool.
Sure.
Now, I'm the only one on the planet that has this phone. This is a new Essential phone. It's so I've been posting these 3D videos. It's super sleek and elegant. The only people that have this phone right now are the guys at Essential. The guy that invented it, Andy Rubin, is one of the big tech guys on the planet. So you have Bill Gates, Steve Jobs, and Andy Rubin did, he's the guy that invented Android. So he made billions of dollars, Google paid, and Rubin was like, you know what? I invented Android, but there's no great phones out. And so he's like, we're going to do a really cool new phone. And so I've been putting out these 3D videos. So let me see. Can you see this?
I can see that. Yes.
And here is the camera for the device. Hooks up in the back here. It's locked. It should turn blue and then green in a second. There, it's green already. And then, okay, so now if I just press a button, I'm recording 3D video right now.
So what does that actually mean by 3D video? Like you could watch it in like a Oculus headset?
I misspoke, 360 video.
Oh, 360, okay.
So right now, if I press a button, it's recording you and I. You can look at that area in my study. You can see Play Poker Like the Pros over there. You can see my trophies. You can look over here, and there's a pretty cool thing of me. So you can see some of my, I'm trying to promote stuff. Here's the Kimosabi Mezcal off here to the side. And, but it's badass. So I went to Elon Musk's. I went on Friday night. I was in Tahoe and I flew back here to my home just for 24 hours to go to the Tesla Model 3 launch. And I brought this 3D camera with me, and I was trending #2 on Twitter, and I released a 3D video of the Tesla Model 3, sent it out that night. My friend got one. And so what's really cool is this video. You can, so once I put up the video, and you can see it on my social media, you can watch it. You have to watch it probably in the YouTube app. You can, so I'm doing the video, but you can swipe left or right. As the video is going, it will show my face if you want, my shoes, gold shoes, of course, the sky, or the Tesla Model 3, which you'd probably watch. So it's amazing technology. These phones are coming out probably within a month, but I'm honored that they somehow gave me, I mean, I know they talked to Taylor Swift and all these other really cool people, and I'm not in that league. I was pretty honored to be a part of this.
What's the phone called again?
The company's called Essential, ESSENTIAL, and it's, I mean, I think it's an Android version and a regular. It's pretty cool. So basically, it's going to be a really expensive phone, like a $700 or $800 phone, which I think a lot of guys like you and I will buy. I also see that, yeah, you and I will buy it.
All right, so let me ask you a couple questions here. What is that stethoscope in the background?
It is actually, yeah. You can barely see that.
Why do you have a framed stethoscope?
Okay, this is so my grandfather, George A. Hellmuth, used to work at Mercy Hospital in Chicago. He was a world famous heart surgeon. I mean, known throughout the world. He won the American Heart Association Physician of the Year in 1973. So he was globally famous, and he's the one that did research on what eggs do as far as cholesterol goes. And, unfortunately for my grandpa, he died in his early 60s, and he didn't have great health. I mean, when you're doing that much, I think, and I think that's why my father took a little bit of an easier path. And for me, an easier path. I have passion for what I do every day, like you do. And, I'll take days off. I mean, that's the nice thing about my life, is that I set it up so I can sleep in 80% of the days of my life, because I want a long life. I have a lot to live for,
Yeah, definitely. That's cool, man. It's always cool to remember the, people in your family that came before you.
Absolutely.
All right, so let's talk about, we have a few other things lined up here. you've had a lot of notable TV moments, without question.
Yeah.
Is there any one or maybe one or two that really stand out as your favorite TV moment?
Wow. I don't know about favorite. I mean, I was kind of embarrassed this year when I went a little bit crazy at Adam Owen in the Raz tournament. He put some ridiculous beat on me in 15 and I won the bracelet anyway. And then he put more of kind of like I mean, his board was, we're playing Raz, his board was 4-4 king. And he kept coming and won this hand. And
I saw this on Reddit. You had tweeted out saying 23 left, good stack, like ready to do my best, #positivity. And then Poker News caught your response when he showed the king 4, or when his board was king 4-4. And you were going, I did a video on this. I made fun of this in a video because it was 3 hours later and you went ballistic.
Bananas. I went bananas. And and here's the thing, and the thing is, I like Adam Owen. I think he's a good guy. And so, I mean, like, but it had nothing to do with like whether I liked him or not. I just was crazy in this hand, and I think there was like 14 left. It was a key pot. I mean, it would have put me right at the chip lead. It was kind of a bad beat. It was an ugly beat. And so that was embarrassing. I also lost it at Terrence Chan. I was playing just amazing limit hold'em. I felt like of all the bracelets I should have won my 4th limit hold'em bracelet because I was playing amazing. I don't think that people even know how to play limit hold'em tournaments properly anymore. But he had king 10. I raised with jacks. I was playing like one hand an hour, and it came ace jack 4, and he decided to peel and he hit a queen, and I just went crazy. It would have put me to 500,000 and second chips, and I think I cruised to that final table. I started whining, and I liked his response. He's like, floor man. He's like, this guy can't talk like this. But I'm always very careful when I start whining to not direct it at any individuals. They did this, they did that. These people are the worst. And there's floor men on both sides waiting for me to say him or, to point at somebody or something, I didn't get any penalties this summer, but those are two moments I was embarrassed with. And I wish I could handle myself better in those moments. But that's just me. I'm just so hyper competitive, I mean.
Has that changed at all for you over time? Because one thing, echoing opposite. One thing I've seen, in poker is that I think when people start to enter the game, they get really tilted easily. It's so unfair that this could happen to them. And then over time, I think players tend to get a bit better. You seem like you've managed to keep a pretty steady, just not being a happy camper when things don't go your way. Do you think that's ever going to change, or is that just who you are?
I've gotten better. I mean, in 07, I didn't do it at all.
Wow, I don't know what it was like before then.
Well, in 07, I didn't do it at all. And I had a 1st, a 2nd, a 3rd, a 5th, a 13th, a 16th. It was crazy. And these were huge fields in 07. I remember Madsen and I, or maybe it was 06, we were battling for, but I just didn't whine at all. I just was able to gather myself quickly. So at that point, there were stories written, the poker bread is dead, Phil Hellmuth has lost this part. No, not at all. So, I mean, it's also a function of how tired you are. So when I play 2 10-hour days and, and now we're on our 3rd day and we're 3 hours into that, I'm exhausted. And then I'm a lot more susceptible to go crazy when someone hits a queen belly buster on me, or when someone takes the 4-4 king and beats me. So I wish I could do better in those spots, and I'm getting better. And I just think there's going to be one year in the next 3 or 4 where I don't whine at all. But don't wait too long for it.
I won't wait. I won't hold my breath. That's for sure. All right, so let's talk about this iconic Phil Hellmuth moment where you told we talked a little about this on our last stream. I want to bring it up really quick here as well, where you told Tom Dwan he's not even going to be around in 5 years. And we also have a question here from Miguel Rodriguez. Thank you, brother, for the donation. When will we see you and Tom Dwan play heads up again? The people want it.
I love Tom Dwan. Now, what people don't know is Tom Dwan and I have had a lot of fun. I mean, when we're on planes together, we sit next to each other. We played Chinese poker the whole flight. We've had big swings back and forth like that. He's invited me to go to nightclubs in Vegas, and I show up. You know, I'll just show up. I don't mind walking into a nightclub by myself. In Vegas, it feels like I'm treated like a god. So when I show up, security is like, it's Phil. I'm like, oh, I'm going to Tom Dwan's table, zip, and you're in, you know? And so I really like him, and I have a lot of respect for the way he plays. That's all true. I don't think that I said that he wouldn't be around in 5 years. I think I said, let's see if you're around in 5 years.
Oh, come on. You were clearly implying that he's not going to be.
I was implying it, but I didn't say it.
Oh, come on. That's such a lame cop-out. If you say, we'll see if you're around in 5 years, buddy, or whatever you said, that doesn't mean, yeah, we'll see. Like, he could be, he might not be. No one knows.
Tom Dwan is great for poker, but I think he especially was great for poker because he's kind of disappeared the last 2 years. No one really sees him. I know that he's playing in the super high stakes in Macau. I mean, I've heard they passed $1 million back and forth, him and a couple of the super VIPs over there are passing $1 million, $5 million like it's water. And so I think he's in a really good spot over there, and I think he's a good guy.
You know, I don't want to hammer this too much. This is another one of those subjects I feel like we've talked a lot here on this channel, but all in all, I agree with most of that sentiment. The real problem for me is the way that he handled the challenge with Jungle. You know, and I'm going to talk about that with Jungle tomorrow in the podcast, so stay tuned for that, guys. But I just don't feel like he handled that in the correct way. I mean, like, you know, if you say we're going to have a side bet for X amount, and then, you know, it's been years, don't you just feel like he should pay Jungle the money that, I mean, realistically, Jungle is owed?
Yeah, I mean, it feels to me like stalling is not a reasonable option. You know, stalling's not reasonable. But you know, did they write anything in there where people weren't allowed to stall? It's kind of implied, right? And so, yeah. So I mean, I don't know anything about that situation. I haven't followed it all. This is like, I've heard some rumblings here and there about it. That's about it. But yeah, he should definitely finish. It's been too long.
Yeah, I always hear things about Tom Dwan, you know, in general that are positive. I've heard some mutterings of him doing extremely well this year or whatever. But then when you have these outstanding balances, I you know, I don't know about you. This is actually, we talked about in Poker Night America where you were mad at Sean Deeb. But like as a newer age player, I never have debts really. You know, like I maybe have like a couple of people that we have like a balance that might be like a little negative or a little positive for a bit or whatever. But you know, if you ask me like right now, Doug, how many people do you owe more than, you know, $10,000 to? I would say the answer is, I haven't checked sheets in a little bit. I don't want like JMO to be in the chat like, oh, you owe me 12 or whatever. But I would say 0 people. You know, I have basically no outstanding balances. And throughout my poker career, I've made a point to not have those balances. So I guess I just see if you're doing well, why not pay off what you owe?
I agree 100% with that. You know, I mean, right now I think I owe one person some money, and we have to sit down and decide exactly what it is.
Yeah, what are you doing Tuesday? just kidding.
I don't think I owe you any money that I remember. I don't know. Did you owe me $1,000 or something? Now you're scaring me. No, I think it's important. Old school players are great. In general, old school players are great at paying their debts, and they pay quickly. And that's just the way it's been. I mean, somebody like old school. Yeah.
Okay.
You know, and we don't have to ask for it. You know, I mean, some of the new school players, when they owe me a couple $1,000s, they don't say anything, and I don't see them for a while. Whereas I can't wait to pay people. I just don't like owing. You know, Mike the Mouth Matisow has taken a lot of criticism over debts he's owed and stuff like that. And I mean, here's a guy that he booked me for. He fell into my trap. Okay, my trap was whenever when I was playing cash games in LA, I would be sitting there and I'd be like, Mike, look, I just called to draw 4 cards. You know what I mean? And he'd run around the room and say, Phil just drew 4 cards. Phil just. So I'd call him over, like when I was in the big blind and I called a raise to drew 5. Or if I see him walking by, I might raise on the button. One guy would call and I'd draw 5 and I'd say, look, Mike, I just drew 5 cards. And so he'd be like, oh, Phil sucks at cash games. Phil sucks at cash games. So he booked me for a year. Which was manning up. I like it. He booked me in every cash game I played for a year.
Wow.
And I think I had a bad year. I think I only won 275,000 or something in the cash games. I think I would have won more if I wasn't being booked, because I held back a little bit. There were some spots I wanted to be really careful and make sure that, and he paid me every penny. It took him a couple of years, but he paid me every penny. One time I bet the Boston Celtics at 20-1 to make the NBA Finals. Now, I love that bet. And this was about 5-6 years ago. They had won the championship, then they'd had serious injuries, and now it's year 3. And I'm like, it's the same team, and they're healthy. But they were big underdogs on the board too. Orlando was tough that year. Cleveland was tough that year. Well, they made the finals. And so, Mike, and I didn't sell any of it off until so Mike had to pay me like $65,000, and he didn't have a lot of cash, and he's paid me a lot of money over the years. And so I don't like seeing his reputation get hurt.
Let me actually quickly clarify, because we have like a lot of, I would say, more casual fans from the channel. Booked means cross book. So it means however Phil did over the course of the year, at the end of the year, Mike would get the opposite result. So if Phil lost 100K, Mike would win 100K. But what happened was Phil won 275,000. So Mike owed him that. That's what booked means, just to clarify this up for.
Book. Crossbook's different though. Crossbook is where I book your results, you book my results, and we pay each other the difference in balance.
Sorry.
But yeah, Mike was stupid. I don't know what he was thinking. He bought into this. All I showed him the magic tricks of me being. I showed him whenever I played a hand bad, I'd call him over, and he fell for it for whatever reason. It's amazing to me. I've had a bad reputation in cash games all these years. I don't think I've ever had a losing year in cash games. And
that surprises me.
And it's not until the younger generation that thinks I suck play with me in a cash game that all of a sudden their eyes are opened, because they've watched the old stuff on television. They've heard all the rumors. And when they sit down with me, I always kind of smile, because I'm like, all right, I know this guy thinks I suck, and I'm going to just destroy him. And he's going to open his eyes. But there's nothing like being with someone to see how good or bad they really are.
Yeah, definitely. Being there in person is, something that teaches you a lot, I think, about how someone actually plays. Because you always hear all of these things about this guy and that guy, and Lord knows if someone plays a bad hand somewhere, everyone hears the story, right? But when you actually sit down and you watch someone, the way that they work, the way that they approach it, the way that they handle themselves at the table, then you start to actually learn about like who that person, the poker player that person really is.
Exactly. It's and it's interesting too. I'll tell you, this is interesting. You and I can play with the same player. Okay. And you can play with him 4 times, and I can play with him 4 times. And I might come away saying he's amazing, and you might come away saying he completely sucks. And even if we're like-minded and think the same way, he may just have had 4 bad sessions you happen to randomly witness, and I happen to witness 4 great sessions for him. And so it's interesting. People are way too quick to judge people in a very quick way. You have to, if you want to judge somebody, you watch them play 20 sessions, 6 hours each, and then you'll have an idea of whether they're good or bad. But even then, they could be off if it's like 20 days in a row.
Yeah, and I think the epitome of that is what happens every year during the main event final table. Every year during the main event final table, you'll see 2 or 3 questionable hands, and it's just like open season on people on Twitter. I'm sure you've seen this.
Brutal. It's so brutal. And by the way, I'm glad you brought that up. Your man Ott, I was very critical of, and I think probably he's a really good player. Probably has good patience. He's probably a nice guy. Is all that true?
So I met Ott when he made the final table. He messaged me and we agreed to meet up, and he would promote up saying I'd help him get ready for the final table. And I think a severe disadvantage, and by the way, also advantage, what got him so far. Dan he's a cash player. He plays like no tournaments. He mainly plays deep stack cash. He mainly, when he plays online, it's a lot of 100 big blind stuff. He had never really done much short stack work at all. Really, I mean, frankly, we were going through some ranges for pre-flop stuff, and he was okay at some of it, but all of a sudden he got thrust into short stack situations for millions of dollars with just the poker world watching. And there were some, I mean, there were some disastrous pre-flop plays, no doubt about it. The king nine, I'm sure you especially loved. I can only imagine how excited you were when you saw the king nine. But at the same time, like, you know, when I'm trying to like help him in those spots, there's only so much you can do with like a 2-day period between, you know, when you make the final table when you're supposed to play it. So really, you know, you go through a lot of like the baseline strategy stuff, a lot of like some deviations. But if someone does not have that short stack knowledge, oh my God, they're going to get torn apart on Twitter or wherever during the main event.
It's true, you know, and Vail was the same way. And I think Vail's a really nice guy. And I think that, you know, the problem is this, you know, I mean, people then like, oh, you didn't do this part right. Well, they forget that player did everything else right for days and days and days to make it down there. So, you know, I mean, I came out and said the truth on the telecast because I'm not afraid. I'm going to talk about the truth. And but then sometimes you know, Vail came up to me and said, hey, Phil, I don't have anything. You said you spoke your truth, and that's cool, and we're cool. But I hope that Ott and I can shake hands, and he's not mad at me because I tore into him a little bit there.
Oh, dude, Dan is a super laid back guy. Honestly, one of the things that I thought was really cool when I met Dan, you know, when you, especially at the higher stakes level in poker, you meet so many just goddamn weirdos, just people that you know what I'm saying? Like if it wasn't for poker, there's no shot we would be in this room right now together. Like no chance. But then I got to hang out with Dan, and he's just a really laid back, nice, normal, genuine dude. You know, he actually when we first put out, I did a heads up course on Upswing in February, and when we first launched it, he was one of the first guys in the door, and I actually gave him a call because I was calling everyone that purchased the product on the first day. And left him a voicemail or whatever. We didn't get the chat, but he's been like part of Upswing and watching all the YouTube vids and whatever for a long time. So he already knew all like the inside jokes, and like he was just a really cool, laid back guy, and he was a part of it. You know, like he wanted to represent Upswing because he said he learned so much from it that he wanted to do it. I was like, dude, if you're gonna promote Upswing at the final table, I'm gonna be there coaching you. I'm not just gonna give you a patch and just be like, all right, man, good luck. Like I'm gonna be there.
By the way, I mentioned your name 3 or 4 times during the telecast. So
thanks, Phil. Thank you. One day maybe I can get that spot, but really tough to get in there when it's Kara Scott, you, and Daniel Negreanu. Like there's not really much of a
Well, I mean, you know, you just never know how long people stay in these roles. I mean, I think the problem is this: you have 10,000 poker players. Everybody wants to do the ESPN stuff. And so then you're compared against the best of the best, right? And so, you know, and it's possible you're better than both Daniel and I at it, you know, but Daniel and I are pretty darn good, and we had such a good rapport between us. It looks like we might have it for another couple of years at least. I think he did a really good job of making fun of me, and I did a really good job of putting up with him.
No, honestly, you guys are great, and I didn't in any way deserve that spot. I'm not trying to imply that. I mean, like this is the first summer I even got to be on ESPN. I'll admit, like the first time where they're like, "All right, we're going live," and they're counting you down. I'm like, "Holy shit, we're going on ESPN right now," you know? And I was like a little bit like taken aback because it's just such an experience. And there were one or two times where like, you know, I made a mistake or whatever on like, you know, national TV. I remember there was one really good moment where I was talking, and I forgot what I was talking about or who I was talking about, but I was talking, and you know, the producer's in my ear, and he's like, Doug, lay out. Doug, lay out. Doug, lay out. And he's just like yelling in my ear, and I'm like, I don't know what layout means. I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing. Doug, shut the fuck up. I was like, okay, I know what that means.
They have never once told me to shut up in the mic. That's freaking weird.
But you're Phil Hellmuth, man. Like we get out there and it's like, okay, we're not supposed to really promote anything.
Well, sometimes
like,
they say 30 seconds left, and then you know, all right. Then you know you have to leave Kara 10 or 11 seconds to take it off the air. But
yeah, I love, by the way, like your ability to like work in promoting the people that you know either sponsor you or like you're part of is amazing. It's honestly like when Ben Lamb when Ben Lamb made the final table, and you were like, he plays for millions at Aria Hotel and Casino. The guy is pouring some mezcal right now.
This mezcal, let me just say this, Doug. You know me. I have to promote.
I got you.
I'm on a lot of advisory boards and have pieces of some of these companies. But I'll tell you, Kimosabi Mezcal I love because I mean South by Southwest we're the official spirit of, and that's pretty cool. And next year I'm going to give a speech at South by Southwest called Positivity. If anybody wants to vote for me to give that speech, but I think I'm already going to do it. So I'm really looking forward to that. And hopefully my book Positivity is out by then. This is the one where I think I can help tens of millions of people. And I'm really excited about sharing things that I've been able to do to be successful.
Well, cheers, man. I don't have any as well, but yeah, if you want me to like, write like any part of anything or give you a quote or whatever, like I'd be more than happy to be part of that too.
Thanks, Doug.
But anyway, what you were saying about Aria during the main, you're like, he plays for millions at Aria Hotel and Casino. I was like, damn, that was aggro. Like you just didn't give a fuck. You just went for it, man.
Well, they don't pay us a lot of money to do the commentary. I don't know what you got, but I didn't receive much money. I'm not even sure I got paid the last 4 years. It was such a small amount. This year, I think I finally saw a contract. My agent sent me a contract to sign online, or whatever. And I looked, I'm finally getting, it looks, well, at least it's something, you know what I mean? But you don't get paid a lot for that. And so I'm going to be a little bit more aggressive, and they don't care. I mean, because it's a fact he plays at Aurea. But I mean, what I really want him to do, my first book, Play Poker Like the Pros, became a New York Times bestseller because of ESPN. Some guy cashed for $21,000, held the book up, and hit the New York Times bestseller list for the next 5 weeks. And now I've sold like 1 million copies of that book. It's amazing. So I really wanted to get, Poker Brat up there, and they got it on ESPN2 for me, and a kind of a cool plug where they cut back to me reading the book, but not on ESPN, and you can only do so much. But yeah, I think it's important to, it's important for the poker world to have sponsorships. It's good for all of us.
Yeah, that's something that I think a lot of players don't really realize. The more corporate money and more companies that get involved in poker, okay, yeah, I mean, like I get not wanting just nonstop advertisements. I understand that. And it doesn't have to be like that. But at the same time, by having that money be part of poker, it's more likely to create shows. It's more likely to, get ESPN time. It's more likely to make prize pools better for players in some instances. We don't see much of that nowadays, but those things have definitely happened in the past. So it can only be a good thing for larger companies to get involved. The problem is in the gambling space, I think a lot of companies, they don't really want to be involved with gambling.
Yeah, it's starting to change, which is good. It changed for a while there. We had some really nice sponsorships. Now we have Amazon coins, and I think Carry Cats and Poker Go has been amazing. That's the other one that Daniel and I both hit a couple of times, Poker Go, when we were live on ESPN. You can watch it all on Poker Go, because that is just huge for our industry. People don't understand. There might be only 6 or 7 of us that are kind of more intimately involved with Poker Go. But this is great for everybody. We're not going to have live poker without Poker Go and Carry Cats. And so he brought in some big sponsors. And Poker Go, I think it's important for every single poker player. I wrote my mom and dad a check. My mom was complaining about spending $70 on some like inhaler. I said, Mom, here, look, I'm going to write you a check for $230. I want you to buy 2 inhalers and Poker Go for a year. Make sure you use my code, PHIL. And so but I think that's great. We have the Poker Masters coming. That's going to be amazing. You have ESPN quality poker, 4 50K buy-ins and 100K buy-in. We have Poker After Dark. We have all these great shows coming. So, I think that is really good for our industry. And if Poker Go goes, I mean, I was around, Doug, in like 01 when the Bicycle Club main event, my beloved, important first trophy, had like 35 players. And I was just like, oh my God, poker is dying. What's going on? And then in 02, I was there. And all of a sudden, the World Poker Tour was there. There were 4 television trucks. Ben Affleck, who was going out with J-Lo, the biggest celebrity in the world, was there. Sports Illustrated, WPT is like, Sports Illustrated needs 5 minutes of your time. I said, no. And I thought, all right, don't be an idiot. And I went back and I said, well, actually, they can have 5 minutes.
I think you want to give them the 5 minutes.
on the main event. So it just went from like this, nothing, and really going the other direction to boom. And I just remember how heady that was. And just like I was flipping out. I had to leave. I walked around for 15 minutes thinking, what the hell just happened? 35 players to like 400 or 500 players. Wow.
Yeah, well, the poker boom was awesome. But specifically about Poker Go, you know, I wrote up something at the start because I remember when they first announced it, and a lot of people were really angry. And I said, look, you guys definitely have some things to be upset about. But it is important to also recognize that the service that the World Series was doing in past years, where they just streamed everything for free, that was very fortunate that was free, you know. And I know it sucks when you go from something being free to having to pay for it. Like no one likes that, but that doesn't necessarily mean that the product is bad. Now, I will also say that there are a lot of people that really hate Poker Go in the community. You know, they're tagging it on the forums, on Reddit, on 2+2. I've seen a lot of it. And
Really?
they have some like somewhat valid gripes, you know. I think at first
What?
when you had to call in to cancel, that was ridiculous. That was ridiculous. I'm really glad that they changed that. And then some of the events, like this is probably something that I think you would agree with. A lot of people that are really into poker, they felt kind of upset they didn't get to see the 50K final table. You know, the Players Championship to a lot of
Yeah,
people
yeah.
was an important
All right,
event.
now that's legitimate, I think, because I think that would have been a really fun one. But I think this is what I know. I talked to Ty Stewart. Ty Stewart told me that they spent X dollars doing all the final tables for the World Series of Poker. Then he told me they spent a number called X. Then he told me that they spent X every single day doing Poker Go. So the expenses were actually 30 times higher. We did super high quality. There's a huge difference between what they did last year with a couple of guys in a booth watching to now with all the camera angles, all the professionals working it. I mean, one was just kind of like, so there's a huge difference in quality, number one. And I think that that's important to point out. And then number two, no one else is going to bring people live poker at that rich quality, you know. I think, and so I think, you know, I mean, I bought in. I mean, I'm playing the Poker Masters, you know. I'm going to play some Poker After Darks because I just think it's part fun to be a part of that, you know.
Well, I would like to know. I'm hoping to make it on some episodes. I talked with Maury. I'm hoping it can work out. But yeah, no, don't get me wrong. Like I do think Poker Go is a good product, especially now that they've worked out some of the streaming problems they had out of the gate and stuff. I do think people overall are being a little bit too unrealistic about it. You know, it's like $10 a month for extremely good poker content. That's reasonable, you know. I just think when you go from free to $10, you're always going to just face like the resistance getting there.
Absolutely. There's and you're going to face a lot of resistance. I agree. But $10 a month. So I mean, Maury's been funny. He carried around like $110 bills in his pocket, and every time someone whined, you just hand him a 10. Here you go. Here you go.
I got a chance to have breakfast with Maury a few days ago. And Maury is just such a great guy. If you guys don't know who Maury Eskandani is, he's like the main producer for high stakes poker content. He produced High Stakes Poker, right?
Poker After Dark, World Series of Poker. He's done the last 7 years. High Stakes Poker. There's like 7 shows that he's done, and they spent $700,000 on the whole card, building a table with whole card cameras. People don't know this. This was in like 1995. And, you know, it didn't really hit till later. And they set it up for 7-card stud because he's an old stud player. And, you know, and so, I mean, his contributions to poker have been amazing. I think he's going to get a lot of my votes for the Poker Hall of Fame. He's also, as you probably noticed, one of the smartest guys I know. Like, I mean, I'm just, I've hung out with him a bunch of times. It wasn't until we really got deep intellectually and I was like, holy shit. I mean, the guy's just smart. So here's a guy that made a lot of money playing poker, primarily 7-card stud for 20 years, was able to buy vacation houses and a nice house in Vegas, and then just stepped into producer. And the most impressive thing about him is that somehow he keeps all these egos in check because no other producer gets along with every other poker player. He's not afraid to tell Mike Matusow, yeah, Mike, I know you think you're the biggest and most important person in the poker world, but you're not, you know, maybe you're number 10, you know, maybe it's 5, I don't know, but you're not number 1 and you're not going to play this week. And so, you know, I mean, he handled all the egos of all the players who all think they're the most important. And I think he's done a good job. On the other hand, he put me on more Poker After Darks than anybody else, even though it was a full tilt poker show. So maybe I'm biased.
All right, so I'm glad you bring up Full Tilt. We got another subject here to talk about. So a lot of people ask me about Ultimate Bet, and I think there's actually been some good news recently, right? There were going to be payments of some kind made from the Ultimate Bet fund. But could you possibly talk about like what the ending of Ultimate Bet was like, kind of what happened with the company, like just your general thoughts on it?
I have a great 5,000 word chapter right here in PokerBet about Ultimate Bet. It's a great chapter. And, you know, I talk about how it started, what happened, how it went public in London. I mean, this company went public in London for $380 million in the London Stock Exchange. What happened, how when online poker was suddenly not legal, you know, and it's interesting for me to hear people, you know, people that have come to me and they haven't been as aggressive, but people have come to me and said, what about this? What about that? And I don't think they understand. I mean, no one was hurt more financially than I was by Ultimate Bet. On the other hand, I made $10 million, so that was great. But, you know, we were
how can that be hurt financially then?
Well, okay. We were 1 day away in 2007. We were being sold for $700 million to Party Poker. We needed 1 day in Congress to pass, and they were out of session. They added the UIGEA as a port rider. You know, that was on the Port Security Act, which of course was going to fly through. And so I was in line to get about $28 million, and instead it just went down to nothing. Now, fast forward to a few years later, 2011, Black Friday, I was talking to Full Tilt. I'd left Ultimate Bet in November, 6 months earlier, and we were slow playing Full Tilt, just trying to get their numbers up. Full Tilt guys, they wanted me, and I wanted to be a part of what they were doing. I thought they were kind of the hottest site at the time, and they were going to give me around a $30 million contract. Okay, I was hoping to get a $2 million signing bonus. I think I would have done it. And I would have been locked in financially for life with a point where they were distributing what, $120,000 a month. Would have been amazing. So I figured it was a $30 million deal. And I just come back. I was going to sign with them next week. And then what happened? Black Friday. I just come back from a USO tour. So yeah, I got hurt kind of twice there by the laws changing. I do think it was fortunate for me that, you know, well, let's talk about two other things. The first is people say, why did you stay at Ultimate Bet? Well, of course, if I would have left, they would have said, why did you leave? And I watched Doyle Brunson go through this. He was with the site went out of business and people were hounding him for their money for years. And I said, no, I'm not going to do this bullshit. If I leave UB, it's probably going to go out of business. I was their biggest, maybe my ego's too big, but I thought it might go out of business. You know, I mean, I was the face of that site. I said, why don't I stay instead? I initiated the investigation personally, you know? And so we found out that it was whatever, $25 million. I talk about the amounts in the book. $25 million of money the players had been cheated out of. And so those players were paid back, and I stayed through that process. And then when I left the site in November, I felt really good. I started with a site that I built up from nothing, and yet I got slandered. And it wasn't until the Travis Makar tapes came out in 2013, where you can hear them talk about how I didn't know anything about it. That was a great day for me. And another great day, I'd already written this book in the chapter when a couple of months ago, they announced that they were going to refund all of the Ultimate Bet players' money and all of the absolute poker players' money in 100%. And I was just so pleased. I was like, oh my God, this is great. Now, I'd left the site 6 months before then. So no one really held me accountable for that, but still it's great to see that that's the case.
I actually did not know that you left before Black Friday. I didn't realize the timeline was like that.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's why I didn't get slandered as much. In fact, then there were articles about what a genius I was. Oh, Phil knew. Phil's like talking to all the senators. He knew that Black Friday was coming. Yeah, right. Come on.
Dude, white magic.
Yeah. I guess I have a lot more power with the U.S. government than people think.
Okay, I mean that makes sense then. Actually, that I think it's a bit of a better spin on it. There were always some like there were a few questionable moments at UB, with at least some of the super using stuff, which was also a problem. And then also there was a pot you played where you at the end of the hand had the worst hand than your opponent, and you got shipped the pot. Do you remember what I'm talking about?
No, I know this exactly. So I'm glad that I can talk about this. This one pissed me off more than anything that ever came out of UB. So anybody that grew up playing on online poker, pots were misawarded all the time. It was not a big deal. You caught it, you sent it in. This hand, the pot was messed up, and they'd do the research and they'd refund you the money, and they'd allow the player that won the pot to keep the money. They never took it away. Everybody knew this. This happened for years. Maybe you weren't around early in online poker, but there were a lot of mistakes made. It was standard. So now I'm playing somebody heads up, right? They log off of so now they did an investigation. This guy logged off of the computer. He logged off of the table before he could get paid the pot. 100% his fucking fault. And they emailed me and they said, Phil, this guy did this. And I said, well, rather than make this guy look bad, let's just say that, that it was just a glitch or whatever, because that's what had happened in the past. And UB was like, no, we shouldn't do that. Our software's too good. We don't want to take a hit. Our ego's too good. And I said, and so that was my mistake. I should have just let him go ahead and say that the guy logged out. He logged out before. And so this thing became a big issue. And I'm like, what the fuck is going on here? I'm getting attacked for a pot being misrewarded, which has happened literally 3 million times throughout the history of online poker.
Has it happened 3 million? Because I can't ever recall it even happening once other than this story.
How about this? How about you and I bet what the standards look like? Because I was there back in the day to start. What would happen is pots were misrewarded all the time. Sites would go offline in the middle of tournaments. I mean, we had a disruption 2 or 3 times a day at Ultimate Bet for 9 months. We had tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of emails coming in. I got cut off in the middle of this tournament. I got cut off. It was
that happens
standard.
That still happens, by the way. The getting cut off in a tournament. That's just true. I mean, everyone that happened. That's happened this year. Like that's still a thing.
But so I was stupid. I should have just the story would have just gone away if we just said the guy logged out. I mean,
But the thing is, why would the money go to the wrong place if you log out?
Well, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I'm not a tech guy.
I know you're not the tech guy. I'm just asking.
I have no idea. I mean, whatever. I mean, listen, Doug, let me ask you this. I'm playing a guy heads up with 400 people watching. Okay. I mean, do you think that anything's going to be going on? I mean, there's like 400 people watching us play. I mean, come on. It's just,
you know what, Phil, you know what it honestly seems like to me? And I could just be, I mean, I'm just like, this is my opinion clearly. But it seems like somebody at UB tried to, without you knowing, make it so you would win some pots that you weren't supposed to win. It seems like that.
Jesus. I mean, you're so far off. They did an investigation. That means they spent like a lot of time looking exactly what happened. The guy had logged off. Now, when you leave the table, I don't know how, I mean, if you leave the table right before the end of the hand, I mean, anyway, whatever, that's what happened. And I'm sure. Do you understand? This aggravates me, your lack of understanding this, not you personally, but just in general. These sites, when they went public, they were going to be worth, we all knew this, in 2005, or maybe it was 2004, Party Poker went public for $8 billion. The last thing you want when you have a site like that and it's worth $1 billion, the last thing you want is any implication of cheating. I mean, you just have to be fucking stupid when you're trying to win like a couple $1,000s over here when I mean, so I mean, I feel like that's you know, I feel like that theory is not a very good one.
I gotcha. I mean, no matter what, I think you were clearly not involved. And I mean, why would you ever be like, these people are watching me play, are going to see the hands, just ship me money that's not, I mean, that would just be stupid. I don't think anyone here is accusing you at all.
No, I'm not accused, but I do want people to understand that it was really not in any site's best interest to even consider something like that, you know.
I gotcha. Okay. All right. So a few more questions here, and then we can call it a day. If you had to pick your top
By the
5,
way, that hand still grates me to this day because they put it in my Wikipedia as if to suggest I was involved in cheating. So some asshole out there, there's some asshole out there who is persecuting an innocent man, me, and make sure it shows up on our Wikipedia whenever there's changes to the Wikipedia. I haven't looked at my Wikipedia in 4 years. I don't care, but I would tell you, the people out there that persecuted innocent people, that is really, really a bad way to live your life.
Well,
and there are a lot of people out there that didn't understand, that said negative things. And I forgive them all because it's in my best interest. Forgiveness is a big thing for me. But that one pissed me off. I'm getting persecuted over that. It was ridiculous in my opinion. But anyway.
That is totally ridiculous. But Phil, you also know how it is, man. Like if enough people hear you talk, or enough people know who you are, then some of them aren't going to like you. I know you say you have 0 enemies, but there are going to be people who decide for whatever reason that they don't like you, and then they're going to try and do stuff like that.
Well, there's a big difference in life between not liking someone and like persecution. And the persecution hasn't happened to me as much as it's happened to some of the other guys. You know, like Greg Pearson has been persecuted, and he just went through a level 5 investigation by the Nevada Gaming Control Board, which is a much more intense investigation than the FBI or the CIA does. They come to your house, they take your computers, your laptops, and he was completely cleared. And this is a guy that had people calling other companies he worked with and telling him he was a cheater and a scumbag. You know, why? Because they felt like somehow they sucked at poker and lost $1,000 and felt like it was his fault. I mean, this whole thing. Anyway, I want to move on from this.
We can move on. Totally cool.
Yeah.
Thank you for answering that, by the way.
Yeah, I don't mind. I will answer all the questions, but I can't also help a little bit of a emotion in this.
Dude, totally cool, man. Totally cool. Thanks for your honesty with it, by the way. All right, so let's move on. Talk about some other subjects here. If you had to pick the top 5 no limit hold'em players under the age of 40, who are your picks?
Well, you've earned your way onto that list because of your results. Let's see, who else? I think there's probably a guy you don't like as much, Mercier. Are you guys okay now?
We're okay. Okay, so not to get too far off topic here, but like we never really had that much beef. There was just like one thing that went down. I know it doesn't seem like I'm being honest when I'm actually wearing a bad rag shirt, but we just had like one thing that went down, and I mean, I guess I can only say it for my half. I don't really know Mercier at all, but I don't really think of it as much of a beef at all, really. I think it's just kind of funny, but I mean,
so I think of him as being one. There's I mean, obviously Fedor has had amazing results and does a lot right. He does get himself in some jams. I mean, he's won a lot of pots when he has king 7 of diamonds and they have jacks. I mean, I've seen that a lot, like especially when he won the 111K. But whether he's lucky or not is another issue. You have to give him one of those spots. Man, who's this guy? German guy who's won like 3 Hold'em bracelets. There's only a few people that have won 3 bracelets in Hold'em. How many of you won in Hold'em? 3. All right, so guess what? There's about 4 people on the planet that have won 3, and that's it. You know that.
Wait,
right?
really?
Yeah, look.
3 Hold'em?
3's a pretty.
Wow.
I've won 12. You happen to be talking to the wrong guy, but.
I love how you set me up for that, Phil. You're like, I was like, 3 is unbelievable. It can't be done. Great job, by the way. Unbelievable. Oh, by the way.
But I think seriously, I think if you look it up, you'll be shocked. How many people have won bracelets? How many Hold'em bracelets is the record one? Take me out of the equation. It's so much fewer than you think. So
the fields are huge.
it's not, I mean, the thing about Hold'em is like I have some seconds and thirds in Hold'em. You can be 10 times as good as your opponents when you get down to heads up. And I mean, the blinds are pretty big by then, right?
Yeah, definitely.
I don't know, man, I might have 5 seconds in Hold'em tournaments or 4 or something. I don't remember, but so yeah, so anyway, I don't know. I would have 3 or if I had another few minutes to think, I would have a couple guys that I would put up there too.
Do you think anyone coming up really embraces the live reads? Like, is there someone that's like a Phil Hellmuth approved player kind of coming up right now?
I think Fedor. I think Fedor has some. I think Fedor, he has some good live reads. I mean, he stares at you for 30 seconds for a reason, right? And
Right.
I think I have to give him credit for having some really good live reads. He plays very similarly to the way that I play, 3-bets. I mean, he tries to 3-bet when he has like a suited hand, like king deuce of diamonds, if he's going to make his move. And I think you believe in that a little bit more too. Whereas I'll just 3-bet with 9-3 offsuit. I don't care what my cards are. I care what my opponent's cards are. And so that's maybe the difference there.
Okay, gotcha.
I mean, Byron Kaverman has some pretty good reads. There's 2 or 3 other guys I think of that have really good reads in your generation. There's more than that, of course.
Byron
Dan
Kaverman.
Dan Smith has good timing. I mean, he's a fantastic player for sure. And he may be making good reads. I mean, I suspect he is.
Yeah, he's been around for a long time, doing well for a long time. Definitely a great poker player.
There's some guys I'm missing. Don't be offended if I'm missing you. You kind of put me on the spot quickly here.
Oh yeah, no sweat at all. Let's talk about this because we talked a bit about it earlier on in this podcast about tanking, and I think we're on the exact same page. Tanking is bad. What do you think about the solution that's kind of been the current way of dealing with it, which is adding a shot clock? What are your thoughts on the shot clock?
I wish we didn't need one, because here's the problem. When I play in tournaments with shot clocks, people feel comfortable waiting a long time to act. And I just think the poker world has to get it through its thick head that if we want televised poker, if we want audiences watching us, we have to act faster. It's just a fact. It's good for everyone in the poker world to play faster. Everyone. And so when someone raises and someone re-raises and you have Jack 5 offsuit, and you know that there's less than 1% of chance you're going to put in some sick 5-bet in that spot, or 4-bet, excuse me, you have to just fold it. Like, I mean, like, what are you doing? Like, I see people wasting time in these spots. And so if we have a shot clock, I'd just like to see people play a little bit faster. And Daniel and I shamed a lot of people that were playing too slow. And I think that it's helped. And I think a lot of guys, I think you've done the same, where we're speaking out against just tanking every hand. It's ridiculous. And I'm not even sure sometimes that it adds, like everybody says, oh, they might get an extra 1%. Well, there's also the counter theory that your first decision is always the correct one. Think long, think wrong, and so it could be hurting 1%, which is really unbelievable. Now you're taking all this time and you're hurting yourself and you're hurting the poker world.
Well, there's sometimes we're stalling. Okay, so let's just talk about tournaments, because in cash games, if you're stalling, that's just ridiculous. I think we can both agree on that for sure. In tournaments, it's kind of tough because every moment you don't lose the tournament, right, other people might. So if it gets to you and you just take a while with whatever, you are actually making money. That's something that I think we all have to realize. Like, you make money by taking longer because the value of your chips increases. So
But
the problem is,
you won't be invited to any of these private events that we're probably going to have soon. I'll tell you that. But I'm not sure how much money they're making. Now, it's different to me, Doug, if you're talking about there's 10 left, in the 1-drop, or 11 or 12 left in the 1-drop, and someone wants to stall. I can't, even though I didn't stall very much myself in that spot, I was at least taking an extra 10 seconds longer than I might have, and if somebody else was stalling, I didn't say anything in those spots, because really there should be hand-by-hand stuff should kick in quicker, and we should get rid of that.
totally agree with you. I'm not afraid to admit this at all. When we were on the bubble, the stone bubble and the one drop, I was like a middle stack or a little bit below average, I think. And this is it's a good chunk of money. And by taking a little bit longer, I'm giving myself a better chance to win that. And I also know my opponents at whatever other tables are doing that as well. So it becomes kind of this battle where, do I give up my EV to the people that are willing to do it, or do I do it as well? And generally speaking, I just do it like a bit. I try to be kind of reasonable about it. I maybe take like 5 or 10 seconds or just something to where, because like if I play immediately and other people don't, you are hurting yourself. That's
I get it. I get it. I agree with what you're saying 100%. And so what we need to do is we need to find a way to solve that. So maybe when we're 3 off the bubble, we play hand for hand. That way everybody can play quickly. It's better television, and we're not hurting ourselves. So there are some solutions they haven't implemented that I think are better.
I agree with that. The problem with the shot clock too is if you're like, okay, you only get 30 seconds, right? Well, that can kind of backfire. And I saw this in the Super High Roller Bowl this year, where people go, oh, I get 30 seconds. I'm going to use 30 seconds every single time. Like, for example, and I love this guy. He's an amazing guy. Christoph Vogelsang, super dreamy German dude, great poker player, great poker mind. But the thing is, he took like down to the 27-second mark on every decision. Flop checks through 4-way on Christoph, 30-second tank, checks through. River on Christoph, 30-second tank, and at that point, you start to wonder, are people taking the full 30 now because it's presented to them where they wouldn't have otherwise?
Well, you completely ignored what I said earlier, Doug, but I said exactly that. And so actually you and I are perfectly aligned on this. That's what I don't like. When you finally do play in one and they think they have to take the whole 27 seconds, then it backfires. And that's really bad for us. I agree. I'd like to see it. I don't think they can do it, but I'd like to see people like me that fold in 2 seconds should be rewarded when I actually need a minute and a half once every hour or 2 hours or whatever it is. It's not that often. I should have a minute and a half. And these guys that take 30 seconds every fucking hand, should be somehow punished. I mean, we have to have things that level the playing field. But to me personally, I don't think they have. I don't care. Actually, I will tell you this. If you're Daniel Negreanu or I and you have great reads, we want you guys to study 30 seconds from a player point of view, because we're going to figure stuff out. It's more time to study you. So it actually is worse for you when you have great players at your table, but we still want it to be faster just for poker.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. Yeah, we're on the same place, or coming from the same place here. And I have watched many hours of your play, because I do a show here on the channel called Poker Hands. I've done it in a couple of months, where I analyze well-known famous hands. So I've seen you play many hands now.
Yeah, I see that picture behind you over there on the right.
Right here. There we are, man.
You're all fired up. I look miserable.
You know what, Phil? This is a little preview for August 22nd. It's gonna look like that.
I don't think so. I don't think so. We're gonna have a lot of time. You're gonna have to I don't think you're gonna be wearing sunglasses and a freaking covering your face. So I'm gonna have a nice little read on you.
I'll let you have a shot at the reads, okay? I want the white magic in play. If I'm gonna get owned, I want it to be good TV.
I mean, you know the way these things are when you have 2 great players playing. I mean, yes, I have some advantages over you. You have some mathematical edges over me. Yeah, wipe that dirt off your shoulder, son.
I'm excited, man. It'll be fun. It'll be fun.
Yeah.
All right. So last couple of questions here, and then let's call it a podcast. If you had not, this was one that was asked by several different people. If you had not ended up in poker, what would you have done with your life?
Man, I have no idea, but I would have hoped, I feel like I could be a promoter. I feel like I could be an author. Maybe I would have been forced to write books at an earlier age. Maybe I'd have 5 or 6 New York Times best-selling books. That would be amazing. But I feel like I'm a personality and a promoter. So I don't know. It's hard to imagine that I just would have been an accountant,
Don't see you being an accountant.
Yeah, and nothing wrong with being an accountant. That's what I was studying. But I don't see myself just doing that. I think I would have branched off to some other stuff. And I really think that I hope that this is the case. I believe that anybody who's great in poker can make a ton of money outside of poker. That's what I believe, because you really have to be able to be put together well.
I agree with that. And who would you say are your biggest influences from outside of poker? Putting you on the spot again.
I kind of like, I mean, like the friendship group I've been hanging, Chamath Palihapitiya has had a huge influence on me. He's my best friend. Bill Lee has been an amazing guy. I write about these guys in my book. Some of the group I hang out with are just some of the smartest people in the world. They've made billions of dollars. You know, I was fortunate enough to hang out with Elon Musk. And, you know, and I've been to parties he's thrown, a couple different parties. I've been to launches he's had, and then I'm in the back room. There's like 8 of us. And like that guy is amazing because he's changing the world. And so somebody like that you have to look up to a little bit. You know, like I said, I just signed a poker brat for him. So that felt pretty good.
Nice. Nice, man. Well, congratulations on everything you've done so far. I hope that the books sell like hotcakes. I need to get myself a copy ASAP. You gave me one. I left it for 2 minutes at Starbucks. Like, oh my God. And I get back and the book was gone. They just swiped it out from under me. Anyway, I need to get myself a copy and check it out.
Somebody's walking around with a copy of my book autographed to you.
I know somebody has that. That copy exists.
I mean, the book is not that expensive. I think it's $17 at Amazon. I mean, come on, give Doug his book back, you know?
I'll tell you what, Phil, we'll put a link to the book right here in the description of the video so people can know where to find it. And again, thank you for coming on the pod, man.
It's been fun. You and I always have we have great energy back and forth, so I love it. It's going to be a great battle too. I look forward to it. We're going to have fun.
I'm looking forward to it, man. And to everyone that tuned in today, that's going to conclude the podcast with Phil Hellmuth. We're going to have another one tomorrow, 3 p.m. Pacific time with Jungle. We're going into the other side of the tournament now. We're going to talk about that upcoming match between him and Frank Casella. Hopefully we can talk a little bit about what happened with the Dirt Challenge, asking what he's been up to. I know he's kind of been under the radar. So make sure you guys stop by tomorrow and stay tuned for more content here. Again, Phil, thank you, man. I'll see you later.
Later, Doug.